Hello, my crafty little tribe. I hope everyone's doing well today. I'm here to do a flip through of my recent completed hardcover Carpetbagger journal. I've been working on this journal and another Carpetbagger for about 6 months now, and I thought I was going to complete the other one first, and that one will most likely be wrapped in a quilt or will accompany a quilt. And I really thought that one was going to be done first, but the story that I tell with this one just wouldn't let me go. It just wouldn't let me focus on anything else. So and this story and this journal is very near and dear to my heart. It's about a woman that I met when I was a little girl, and I grew up with her around, and she lived right down the street from me especially when I was really little and I lived with my grandparents. But I just knew that I had to tell this woman's story. So I'm just going to jump right in, and then I'm going to give thanks and credit to certain artists and people at the end, because without the knowledge, without the sharing, without the classes from these artists and these people who have absolutely changed my life, I wouldn't have been able to tell this story and complete this journal in the manner in which I did. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to jump right in. When I was little, I was about 5 years old. I met a woman. Her name was Bernadette O'Hare. She was one of the many women that came in and out of my life, my grandmother's life, my grandmother's life. She was one of the women that sat often at the big table having Lipton tea with me and Grandma and Grandpa, and also one of the many women who sat and sewed and created the most extraordinary quilts and did exquisite embroidery. And this woman, Bernadette O'Hare, is one of the people that really helped to shape me into the person that I am today. However, I always knew her as Aunt Bernie, not Bernadette. And here's her story. So, I'm just going to give you a quick measurement of the journal, including the crocheted scalloped border all the way around the entire journal. It measures about 7 inches wide by about, well, almost 11 inches tall, and she's chunky. I had to make it chunky because there was so much to her story, and I didn't want to leave out the important things. I put this book plate on the front and put the word Memoirs. And to me, Memoirs means giving a factual account of somebody's life. And either you do it for your own, or do it for yourself, or you do it about someone else. So as we open it up, when I was young, like I said, I was about 5 years old when I first met her, And when she first started coming to the house, I've got this picture, this vintage picture of like an old group of ladies, a quilting bee, and then there's a beautiful quilt on the wall behind them. And that's pretty much what it was like in my grandparents' house. There was many women. Some came often, and some only came like once a month. Some would come and stay for a while, and then you know, their life would take them on a different course, and then, you know, a year would go by, and then all of a sudden that woman would show up and she'd sit down as if she had never left. It was just the way it was in my grandparents' house. So I've got that there, and I've got this little piece of ephemera sewn on this side with an advertisement for vintage threads, types of thread. I made a tag here, and I've shown these tags in other videos, but I still had a few left over that I really wanted to use, and I've got the word strong here because she was definitely strong. She was definitely strong. She smiled all the time. Well, mostly all the time. And she was, she showed unconditional love just about all the time. And as the years went on, I learned more and more about her life and the things that she had to endure, and the life she had to live. And some of the things that she lived through were pretty horrible. I mean, and I just could never understand until much later in life how she managed to find the strength to smile all the time and to love and to show love and kindness. I also threw in this little piece of ephemera here, standard mince pies. Her and my grandfather, excuse me, would make these Irish mincemeat pies. Now, when I was little, I didn't care for them. As I grew older, they kind of grew on you. But everything in the journal, even little pieces of ephemera, they mean something to the story. This is one side of one of my gel plate printed papers. This side is, I've done some stamping and some distress oxides on this side, you know, stamp of a thread and a sewing machine and some scissors, some buttons, a thimble, some measuring tape, washi tape. And then there's this, she loved butterflies. I love butterflies too, but my favorite is monarchs. But she loved butterflies, so I did a little butterfly here and a little collaging down here with some cheesecloth. And then there's some journaling space here. Some more washi tape. It looks like a film strip. So on several of the pages, there's a lace border or lace edge. And as the story unfolds, you'll understand why I put. I'm not normally a lacy kind of person, but I do have a lot of lace, and as the story unfolds, you'll understand why I put so much lace into this journal. Here's the bottom half of a vintage map of Ireland, because Bernadette was from Ireland, and I learned and saw early on in life that there was a connection there between Aunt Bernie and my grandfather, and my pretty much straight off the boat. He was pure-blooded Irish, and basically his family in Ireland knew and was friends with her family. So when she came to the house to visit, she'd not only greet my grandmother like most women did, she would also greet my grandfather, and they would exchange a hug, and and he would give her a little peck, a little kiss on the forehead, telling her how happy he was to see her. I didn't learn until much later on in life. My grandfather was very reserved a good portion of the time, but with her he showed just that little glimmer of affection. So I knew there was something more, something more to it, and that's why, is because his family was friends with and very close to her family in Ireland, and so they'd known each other since they were born. This page I dedicated to kind of like summing up, in a way, what kind of person she was. She had a very strong faith, and I think I'm going to try to zoom in here a little bit, just a little bit. See if that's a little better. She had a very strong faith, so I stamped that in the little teacup there, because that was just the way it was in my grandmother's house. If you were friends with us, if you were family, you sat at the big table and you shared a cup of Lipton tea. And that's just the way it was. This is a big quote from Alan Cohen, and it really resonated with me and reminded me of, the kind of person she was, that, kind of her beliefs. Those who love you are not fooled by mistakes you have made or dark images you hold about yourself. They remember your beauty when you feel ugly. Excuse me, your wholeness when you are broken, your innocence when you feel guilty, and your purpose when you are confused. I stamped a big B there for Bernadette, or Bernie. This is a vintage picture that I found, a vintage photo from the early 1900s, and it so reminded me of Aunt Bernie and when I was a little girl. I mean, she cleaned up rather well, and when she needed to, or when she felt like dressing up, she looked stunning. But her favorite way of being was, putting a bandana around her head and wearing frumpy old farm clothes and just getting dirty, and that was where she was happiest. I did a little collage here with some upholstery fabric, some lace, and some textile yarn. And then below here, this is the most important part, Aunt Bernie's snow bars. This is a recipe that, I ate them when I was little. I loved them. And as I grew older, I made them. My mother made them. And if you follow the recipe just as I've typed it here, and don't deviate from it, if you follow it just the way I've typed it, you can't go wrong. They're like, the bottom part of it is like a sugar cookie, kind of crumbly, kind of cookie bar on the bottom. Then there's a layer of raspberry preserves, and then a layer of meringue, and then another layer of coconut. They're just wonderful. And now I make them every year, sometimes at Thanksgiving, sometimes at Christmas, but I make them at least once a year. They're just wonderful. Up here is an old piece of vintage embroidered kind of lace fabric. Another one of my gel plate prints, a fabric tab over here. And as I grew older, I kind of I got my own style. I learned and got my own style of quilting, and I proceeded to make many what they call Bargello style quilts. And I took fabric and I cut into I sewed them together, and then I glued them onto the pocket, and then sewed down with decorative stitches from my sewing machine, but I made a Bargello quilt pocket. And this is one of the tags that I made, and it's just, they're kind of simple, but I just love how they look. and some eyelash trim to go with it. And then up here I stamped "Nothing is as comfortable as an old friend." Some more coffee stained paper and some more lace. This side, this is the first half of a, I call it the cinema movie page. And once a month without fail, Aunt Bernie went to the movies. And we had a movie theater in our town, and it was called the Savoy. And without fail. And back in those days when I was really young, you could pop your own popcorn at home and put it into like the old brown paper bags, and then you could bring the excuse me, bring the popcorn with you to the movie theater, because a lot of people couldn't afford to buy popcorn from the actual movie theater, so you made your own, and it was a lot cheaper, and they let you bring it in, and it was like a long time. And up here I put the word "remember," because she very often said, "I don't care how you do it, but whether you document them by writing them down, take pictures, you know, make a scrapbook, photo album. I don't care how you do it, but do it, because not every memory in your life is going to be pleasant. But when you do have those good ones, those really happy memories, you don't want to forget them, because when you can look back at those good ones, it'll help you through the bad." And of course, when I was young, that didn't really make sense to me. But of course, as I got older, it made perfect sense. So that's why I put that word there. And then she had an unfailing faith in God. And the more I learned about her life and what she lived through and endured, I absolutely, I couldn't understand how, with everything she went through in her life, how she could still have such a strong faith in God. But she did, and it never failed, and she never gave up on him. And I could only hope when I reach old age that I could have the kind of faith that she had. And over here on the side is, there's a little front pocket, and it's a piece of ephemera, and I got this, I'm pretty sure I got that from Graphics Fairy. And it says "Pray without ceasing," and then there's a little pocket here. There's a few little spots throughout the journal that I haven't put anything in, and that's, I try to leave room for whoever the recipient is going to be, so they have a spot to put whatever they want in. But on the side here is a little tag, a little teeny weensy tag, and it says "Beauty is God's Handwriting" by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And just slide that right back in there. And then on the side here, it's kind of hidden, is another little pocket with a journaling card that I made. And down here it's got some scissors and some script writing, and then some, and it says "Cologne," and then "Paris," and then on the back it says "We love because he first loved us." There's a few throughout the book, throughout the journal, of her Aunt Bernie's favorite scriptures, some of them. So there's that. That can go right back in that little secret little pocket. Okay. And then you can lift it up. Let me see if I can bring this down so you can see it. You can lift it up, and then it says, "All you need is love." And there's more journaling spaces there. And then I stamped, you can journal down here too, but I stamped like a really pretty, like a cross. Okay, and then and then this is the center of the first signature. There's 3 signatures, and I think there's 86 pages front and back. 86 pages total. So I made these teensy weensy little, they look like tea bags, and I used them to put on the ends of the wax linen thread for the first signature, and it says "Love and Hugs" on them. And I put them there because Bernie used to, there, I think you can see them better now. Aunt Bernie used to say that all the time whenever she came into the house, when she arrived, or whenever she left. She'd say, "Come on over here and give me some love and hugs." So that's why I put that there. You are inscribed on the palm of his hand. Isaiah 49, verse 16. Endless mirth and amusement, the other half of the cinema theater page. Without fail, once a month, she went to the Savoy Theater, and there were times when my mother and I would join her, and we went to the movies too. And it was just so much fun, eating homemade popcorn out of a brown paper bag. And then it was like clockwork. And you always knew the night after the movie theater was bingo night at the Catholic Church. Bingo night. Yep. So there's a little piece of ephemera there. Then down here's a vintage ticket for a theater. Over here I did another side pocket, and they look like tickets in the center. The background is some Distress Oxide colors, some orange and mustard and some blue and some gray and smoke. And then the fabric squares in the center are scraps. This piece right here is a piece of my grandmother's dress. One of her dresses. This is a piece of vintage fabric that I have had for a long time. And these two squares down here are scraps from Tim Holtz Eclectic Elements fabric line. And then I took a Tim Holtz flower punch and then sewed buttons on top of them. Here's another one of those tags that I made, and this says create. And then this page is an embossed vellum envelope. And then I put like a postage fabric on top and made like a little banner so you could tuck the top of the envelope inside. And I learned how to make these from Artie Mays. So if I pull it up close, you can see the embossed part of the envelope at the top. And then, don't want to hurt that tassel. I made this tassel from watching a tutorial from Mrs. Cog. I think in her tutorial she makes Christmas ones, but it doesn't really matter. You can make them any theme you want as long as you follow along the way she does them. And I found them to be, I thought it was going to be really hard, and it wasn't. It was so much fun. If I'd had more time that day, I probably would have made a bundle of them. And then I made this, I don't want to be out of frame. I made this postcard, I stamped, and it said Love Life. I decoupaged these letters on Love Life. Then over here it says Miss Bernadette O'Hare with a faux, a make-believe kind of address to Ireland. But she always used to say things like that, like, love your life. You only have one. You only have one chance at this life. And some things are not going to be fun. Some things you're going to have your bad days. You're going to have horrible days. But you're going to also have some wonderful days. But you've been given life. And there is a purpose to it. So love it. Love the life you've been given. Here's the top half of that vintage Ireland map. It's really, really pretty. I mean, it's really pretty. I like it a lot. She loved peonies. Aunt Bernie loved peonies. I mean, she loved flowers, period. She had little flower beds all around her house, but loved peonies. Those were like one of her favorites. And I just got a little piece of really pretty girl on a piece of ephemera. It says Hall's Vegetables Sicilian Hair Renewer. Hair Renewer. But the girl is so pretty. So I put that in there. And if you undo the bow, this is like some really super soft like yarn. And if you undo it, you can bring it down, and then you can have some more journaling space here, and it says notes. And then you can bring it up just a little bit, and you can see you can journal on this part too. And there's a little piece of washi tape, and it says pray, 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 pray. Always pray. Okay, let's make sure I stay in frame here. So yeah, this is for her love, for Aunt Bernie's love of peonies. Let me see, what are we doing next? Okay, so I made this altered paper clip, and the pieces, I covered cardstock or scrap cardstock with some more of that Tim Holtz Eclectic Elements, and I think this piece, the top piece, is the old vintage bottle caps, and then below it is music sheet fabric, and then down below is a quote. It says, "Real joy comes not from ease or riches or from the praise of men, but from doing something worthwhile." I think I got that from Nik The Booksmith. And then this fabric right here is like super old. I've had it for eons. Okay, so there's the first signature. And this is the other side of that. And then the first half of the second signature with another gel plate print. When Aunt Bernie was about 16 years old, her father, well, her entire family were devout Irish Catholics. And he always felt that all of his children should have a skill set, or a skill that would allow them to make a living, something they could fall back on. Well, early on, he figured out that Aunt Bernie was exceptionally good at making what they call, well, it goes by several different names, but it's basically Irish crocheted lace. But there's other names. I think the Kenmare lace, or Carrickmacross lace, Limerick lace, Irish crochet lace. But she was exceptional at it. She could do magical things with her hands, and it ended up not at that time, but she realized years later that gift, that skill, she said God gave her that skill. God gave her that gift of being able to make the lace, because on several occasions, having that skill and being exceptionally good at it, it saved her life on many occasions. Here is an envelope and lined with some beautiful coffee stained lace down here. And then another little piece of ephemera from the Butterick Publishing Company. Any advertised size pattern, regular price 20 cents, now 10 cents, and it's good until June 1st, 1900. Can you imagine 10 cents for, my goodness. So this is the first half of a piece of paper that I printed out from, it's called the American Magazine Popular Periodical New York Journal. I think it says 1895. Mrs. Knack's Faith and Divine Forgiveness. You can see a picture of a priest and a mother and its child, and I just thought it was cute. Never regret anything that made you laugh. And then here I printed, when she was at school, when she was sent to, her father sent her away to this, it's kind of like a boarding school. And back here, this is a picture, an actual vintage picture of Irish crocheted lace class. And I think it was this is 19, 06, I think. But this is an actual picture, an image from a class in Ireland for lace making. And that's where she went. Her father sent her there. So, and then she learned early on, after being sent to this school, that there was a social code, you know, a way you were supposed to act. So I printed this. I found this on the, it's called The Delineator, The Social Code by Mrs. Roger Pryor, and it says 1895. And I printed it on that painter's masking paper. Again, tutorial I watched from Nik The Booksmith, and you can get this paper on a big roll for like $3. And it prints, I mean, it's super thin, super thin. But man, if you do it right, it prints out like the most beautiful, crisp images on it. Another fabric tab with some lace, the little road to carry, music sheet. Over here's another side pocket with some more lace. Another one of those tags I made, and this one says smile. Aunt Bernie used to say, smile. Make people wonder what you're up to. So when she was at school, she met a young man, and his name was Ian, and she fell in love with him. I made this tag right here. On one side is like brown craft card, and then on the other side I ripped part of a dictionary page and all the definitions of lovebird, love song, love, for love, passion, you know, that sort of thing. And then here's a picture of, well, this image came from Tim Holtz's photo booth collection, but the way the way Aunt Bernie described Ian, it was perfect. So I put him right there because he's just so darn cute. And then I put a little, with a bulb clip up here, I put the word love over some scraps. And put some, it's kind of like textile yarn and eyelash trim together. But the color was perfect. And then here's just an envelope. There's nothing in it. Again, that's one of those spots where the recipient can put whatever they want in it, but it's a really beautiful envelope, and it's a freebie. It's one of those freebies from Artie Mays. So I just tucked that right there. If I can. Why can't I get this in there? There we go. And then this side is one of my eco-dyed papers, and this is just one single branch of the little pine needles, and that's how it came out. And I love it. Oh, thank you, Susan Taylor Brown. I'll thank you again at the end, but that is just, I just love how my eco-dyed papers came out, and I followed Susan Taylor Brown's little recipe, and they just came out so good. And there's a baby duck. Now, I think there's a stamp of a baby bunny in here too. Aunt Bernie loved anything baby. All creatures babies. Whether it was a baby duck, baby bunny, baby kitten, baby puppy, it didn't matter. She loved all the baby things. Now, I didn't understand when I was little why the fascination and the love for everything baby. As I grew older, of course, and I learned the story, then I completely understood. And as the story unfolds, you'll understand as well. So there's Ian, little baby duck. Over here, oh, this is the other side of that eco-dyed paper. I gotta show you this. I mean, look at that. I don't know if you can see the shimmer because I sprayed some shimmer mist on it too. But, oh, I love how my eco-dyed papers came out this year. Okay, so there's a stamp right here in the corner of a young girl with an even younger little girl, and they're obviously like playing in the flowers. Some things Aunt Bernie never spoke about, or spoke about rarely. But one thing she did talk about was her love for her sister, her younger sister. And unfortunately, after she was sent to the boarding school for the lace making, she never got to see her sister again. her sister succumbed to, and unfortunately, consumption took her life. Consumption is another word for like TB or tuberculosis. It took her life, and unfortunately, she never got to see her sister again, and that bothered her severely for the rest of her life, because she really loved her. So here's the bottom half of a really pretty receipt, and you'll see the top half, which is even prettier, here shortly. This is a vintage picture I found of a woman in the early 1900s, and she's got one of her daughters standing behind her, and she's reading a letter from someone. And that just made me think of the times when Aunt Bernie talked about sending letters to her mother and her sister and her father from the boarding school when she was making the lace. Okay, so unfortunately, I mean, the first 7 months of her time at boarding school was fantastic, and again, she fell in love with Ian, and things were just, I mean, she was just, things couldn't have been better. Unfortunately, Aunt Bernie fell pregnant, and back in those days, the birds and the bees weren't discussed, so to speak, and it was being pregnant out of wedlock. There was a huge stigma around that, and it brought a tremendous amount of shame to the family. Once her father found out that she was pregnant, and the manner in which she got pregnant, he was appalled, and of course that brought shame to him and to the family. So she was basically kicked out of the boarding school, and then her father had her moved and basically shipped to what they call, well, they've been referred to as Magdalene asylums or Magdalene laundry, and that's where she went next. And her life was no longer what she thought it was. It was back in those days. Magdalene asylums were, well, when they first started out, I believe they were mainly Protestant, but then later they were mostly Roman Catholic, and they were basically institutions operated and set up and run and operated by nuns from different orders, Sisters of Mercy, Sisters of the, I mean, there are many different orders. And they were basically set up to house what they call fallen women, or they've been referred to as the fallen Maggies. And it was basically just a huge institution, operated large commercial laundries, and then these laundries served customers outside, and they served wealthy politicians, wealthy businessmen. It served the Catholic diocese, did the laundry for all the priests. The lace making, again, came into play for her. She was good at it, and it saved her life again, because she got to at least make the lace for the garments that the priests wore, or the altar boys wore, or the nuns, and then also lace for the wives and the women of these wealthy families. But the conditions of these laundries, these asylums, were horrific. And I can't even imagine what she had to endure. I know some of the things that she spoke about, and I just, sometimes even to this day, it's hard for me to think about how she still managed to put a smile on her face, and to be loving, and to give of herself, and to do for others, and have faith and believe in God. It was horrific. It was horrific. So she was there, and she gave birth to a son. And right after she gave birth to her son was removed, and for the longest time, she didn't know whether her son was alive or dead. Thousands of women perished in those asylums. Thousands of babies perished. Even to this day. Oh, sorry. What you're listening to is my Chihuahua. Yeah, he's in a chair and he's snoring. That's what you're hearing. He snores louder than my husband. Anyways, where was I? So her son was removed from her. She never got a chance to see him or hold him. And so thousands of babies perished as well. Even to this day, there are hundreds of babies buried in unmarked graves. And it's unbelievable to even think about. So here is a journaling card that I made for this pocket. And this is a painting that I got from a copyright-free site. Again, thank you so much, Susan Taylor Brown. And it's basically the penitent Magdalene. That's what it's called. You know, Mary Magdalene was, forgiven by Jesus, for living a life in sin, and then she didn't sin anymore after that, and so that's where they got that, was the penitent, the fallen Maggies. All these girls are, lived fallen, not so acceptable lives, and this is where they go to do their penance. And it was basically free labor in horrific conditions. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Philippians 4, verse 13. Down here in the corner is a little tree that I stamped, and I mean, she's. I was told, I can't remember who told this. I was told that Aunt Bernie was often seen sitting at the base of a tree. She loved sitting under trees and having her lunch, or just being there amongst the branches. She loved trees, especially in the autumn, and I had that love too. My favorite time of the year is autumn or fall in full bloom with the fall foliage. It's pretty much the only thing I miss about New England from where I used to live. Okay, so on this, again, there's these fabric tabs with lace on them, and then over here is one of those window index card pockets. I learned that from Tracy Fox. That was fun. It took a little finagling. I made a couple mistakes, and then I made another one, but then I figured it out, and I love how this one came out. I printed the pictures of the flower onto vellum, and then I made this journaling card to go with it, and then I found this fabric and made a fabric tab, and it pretty much matches the flower, the color. So I just slide that right in there, and it says here, "It isn't what we say or think that defines us, it is what we do." Jane Austen. Now, that is how she lived. that's how she lived. It's what we do with what we have. Over here is a picture, another one of those photos from Tim Holt's photo booth collection. But this picture was perfect. From Aunt Bernie's description, there was a girl at the asylum who she became best of friends with, and her name was Aileen. And she was also sent there for similar reasons. I don't think she was pregnant, but I think her parents felt that she was too promiscuous. She didn't act like a good girl, so they sent her away to teach her a lesson. And so I did this little collage here with some buttons to show, because she spoke about Aileen quite often. I mean, they were thick as thieves, those two, and she said, I give God, she used to always say, I give God credit first and foremost, but I would not be able to survive all those years there if it wasn't for her, if it wasn't for Aileen. Another one of those tags that I made. They're pretty cool. I'm going to have to try to remember the tutorial I watched in order to make them, because they're simple, but they're so neat. And I don't know if you can see, but the inside of this is another one of those eco-dyed papers that I sprayed with Tattered Angels Shimmer Mist. I don't know if you can see it or not, but anyways. Again, this side pocket is covered with some beautiful gold lace. Tim Holtz Ledger washi tape here on the side. Another vintage picture that I found. Oh, see, there's the little baby bunny. There's the baby bunny. Another vintage picture I found of a little girl and with a little younger girl. That represents basically Aunt Bernie and her sister. She really loved her a lot, and I've always felt so sad. And I always thought to myself, why couldn't she have gotten a chance to see her sister again? Because she really did love her. Okay, so over here is a fabric ruffle sewn onto the bottom. There's a side pocket with some ticket washi tape. And down here is one of those, what do they call them? It's like a pin. Not a pin, fastener, like a long fastener pin. And it's got the number 27 on it, which is very, very important. She was sent to the Magdalene Asylum at 17. 10 years later, she was 27. That's when she finally got released or got out of the asylum. So she spent 10 years there. And for the majority of women, she was extremely lucky to have gotten out when she did, because so many, I mean thousands of women spent their entire adult life and died in those asylums. There's a shipping tag, and on the back of it is a scrap piece of eco-dyed paper. She loved carousels and horses. So I put this little piece right here, and it's covering the back side of the little long fastener, so you can't even tell that it was there. The other half of that social code printout paper. A journaling page. Over here's a side pocket with some scrap of the jelly plate print paper. And I just put this, I glued this little piece right here. It's, it's just a little something. It said Southeastern Antiques Fair. Now this actually came from an old newspaper from 1901 that I got. But Aunt Bernie loved going to antique fairs and to auctions. Oh my good Lord. Oh, have mercy. That woman, she became like a different person. you couldn't get, and once she got there, she wasn't going to leave until she was good and ready to leave. And then I just got little pieces of ephemera here. An advertisement for the great Price Maker Sears and Roebuck catalog. Do you remember that? I remember the Sears catalog. My grandfather loved that thing. He would order things from... He would sit down and spend an entire evening just going through the new Sears catalogs that were issued like once a year. Oh my gosh, he loved them. Morning Glory coal stove, base burning coal stoves. Another little piece of ephemera there. Whoop. Okay, and there's the end of the second signature. We all loved butterflies. There's a monarch there. I had the decoupage one there with a little piece of scrap music paper. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, I'm free, she said. Okay, so now Aunt Bernie met a priest. Now, most of them were not so nice, okay? I mean, that's the... I don't know how else to say it. Most of the priests in the church there, most of the priests that came in and out of those asylums, they weren't very nice. But there was one priest that was, and he found favor with Aunt Bernie, and his name was Father Patrick. Now, I found this old vintage picture of an actual Irish Catholic priest, and she said his name was Father Patrick. Yeah, Father Patrick. And he knew that she was extremely talented and she could make the most beautiful lace, and she had a strength about her that most of the girls didn't. And because of that, he knew of a family, a wealthy family, that were about to immigrate to America. They were looking for a woman to be like their, all around, like their housemaid, their nanny for their children, sewing, whatever needed to be done, that woman was going to do it. And they asked Father Patrick to help them find someone. Well, Aunt Bernie was that girl. At the age of 27, he did like a meet and greet with this family, and they hit it off pretty well. And thanks to Father Patrick and God, basically, she packed her trunk, and she said that day was unforgettable. Unforgettable. That's why I put the word there. It was unforgettable. And she packed her trunk. Here's some little ephemera here of an actual Catholic church in Ireland. I think that's 1901 or 1903, I think. And then, of course, Lipton tea. I mean, yeah, I had to put that in there because it all started at Grandma's table, drinking Lipton tea. And then lilac bell talcum powder. She smelled like lilacs all the time. I don't know if it was perfume or whether it was powder. I don't know, but she smelled like lilacs all the time. So she got on a ship, and here's the ship. She got on a ship, and she sailed to America. Here's a pocket right here, and I stamped a beautiful compass on it. And the reason for that is because even on Aunt Bernie's worst days, she had a compass in her purse. It was like a reminder to her. And I said, why? And I asked her, why do you have a compass in your purse? And she said, the compass reminds me, even on my worst days, that my son is somewhere out there. And he gives, I have direction. he's my compass. He's my compass, and he gives me direction. He gives me strength. Just the idea, just the thought of him being out there and possibly searching for me, or that I might possibly be able to meet him someday, that's what keeps me going. My son is my compass. So there's the ship she went. Oh, and this is a page from an Irish immigrant book, okay? And basically this page was very significant because this is exactly what she did. She got on a ship, and it said in service, and there's pictures of all these Irish immigrants in uniforms, okay? And it says here, many Irish immigrant women took jobs in service as maids, housekeepers, cooks, and scrub women. Wealthy and even middle-class families in the 19th century often went to the immigrant stations to hire Irish women just off the boat. Many of the Irish service women regarded this type of work as more dignified than laboring in a cloth mill or some other kind of factory. And that's exactly what she did. She went with this family to America, and she was their maid, she was their nanny, she was their cook. She did whatever needed to be taken care of, it got taken care of. And she didn't get paid very much, but she got paid something. And she said to her it was like being paid gold, because for 10 years she worked in that asylum for nothing, in the most horrific conditions. So she was thankful to receive any type of pay. And then there's like a half page here with a little edge thing here done by that paper punch that Nik The Booksmith recommended, because I had to buy it because I loved it too. And some scraps from the Tim Holtz fabric line, and then some eyelash trim and a little sewn button, some more jelly plate printed paper. And then over here is the Tim Holtz stitched slots die cut. And so I put the word souvenirs here, and then little pieces of souvenirs, because that's what she did. Wherever she went, as soon as she left that asylum and went to America, she took little souvenirs from wherever she went, whether it was a bus ticket or a receipt from a store, or it just didn't matter. She just kept everything as a souvenir. So this is a bus line ticket, Cardiff ticket to somewhere. I'm not sure where that is. And I had to throw this in because if she could put it in everything she cooked or baked, she would have. She loved vanilla extract. I mean, she put it in everything. All of her baked goods, everything. She put vanilla extract in everything. She loved it. And then there's these little A&P tickets. When called, it's your turn for service. I thought those were so cute. Remember the old A&P? Okay, now I'm showing my age here. Central Pacific Railroad tickets. Ticket for a new home sewing machine. And then the back of this is a really old, beautiful stopwatch. I think that's what it's called. Die cut. My husband got me that. I love it. Some more textile yarn. Some edge punched paper. And then we're going to flip this over. And I use some scraps of book pages, graph paper, ledger, coffee stain paper, and then the top. And I made this little notepad. And the top is a scrap from one of my eco-dyed papers. And down below it said, I say this to myself a lot, because I think I should know everything like instantly, and that's not how life is. So I have to remind myself, the expert at anything was once a beginner. Helen Hayes. I really, really love that quote. And I say it to myself often. I really do. Okay, so we're going to just flip this back over like that. Okay, oh my goodness. I've been doing this for... Okay, I'm almost to the end. Okay, so This little corner pocket is of a lantern, a vintage beautiful lantern, and then I glued this little Tim Holtz mini tiny postcard there in the corner. And then up here is a little piece of ephemera. It's a advertisement for biscuits from Paris. This came from Graphics Fair. It's one, I mean, it's so simple, there's really nothing to it, but it's one of my favorite little pieces of ephemera, and I put one of these in almost every one of my journals that I make. I love it. When I used to sit on Aunt Bernie's porch, because her house was like 5 houses down from my grandparents, so it wasn't very far. Every night before she went to bed, well, every evening, as soon as it got dark, she'd light this lantern on her porch, and she'd keep it lit until late, until like right before she was getting ready to get into bed. Then she would come out and turn the lantern off. But she did it every single night without fail. And one night, as usual, she would make the most incredible biscuits. And then she would take honey and mix the honey with something, and I still don't know what it was, but they were incredible, okay? Incredible. And one night I was sitting there eating one of her biscuits with her, and I said, Aunt Bernie, why do you put that lantern on every night? I mean, the light above the porch is plenty enough light. Why do you do the lantern? And she said, because one of these days my son might be searching for me, and it might be nighttime, and I want his path to be lit so he can find his way home to me. And I thought that, I mean, at first I thought that was just so cool. As I got older, I felt sad, because I honestly don't know if she ever did get to meet her son, or if he ever had the privilege of knowing his mother. I like to think that he did. But, you know, enough years have gone by now, so if they didn't meet up in this life, I'm pretty positive they've met up in the next life. So that's the reason for the lantern. And over here is a little fabric tab with some more textile yarn and some lace on it sewn. And then I got this little, I sewed some little safety pin with some beads, some really cool beads. And up here is a little charm of a lantern, a little tiny lantern. Yeah. Yeah, I can't say anymore because I start crying. Every time I think about that part of the story, I want to cry. Anyways, this is a dried flower that I did. And she loved purple. Anything to do with purple flowers, okay? But she loved purple. But this is a dried flower that I did. And then I took some a laminating sheet, and I pressed over the flower to preserve it, and then I sewed around it and onto an envelope. Okay, there's nothing in this envelope right now. Oh, what happened to my pen? It just popped out. Oh, there it is. Okay, so there's nothing in the envelope, but I'm sure the recipient will have something or many things that they'll want to put into it. I mean, this is so chunky as it is, I had to stop. But I want the recipient to be able to have certain secret little spots to put things in. So, and she was love. Aunt Bernie was love. Despite all the things, all the tragedies in her life, all the things that she had to endure, she showed love every single day of her life. And I truly believe that's what God wants us to do too. This, I glued this on. This is a piece of really old mulberry paper. And I sewed that on there. You can write on it. This is another altered paper clip. So that's there. This is the other back side of that gel plate print. Some ledger paper. I saw this paper and I thought, that's Aunt Bernie sitting there writing a letter. She was always writing letters to people. She was always sending out greeting cards. Always keeping in touch with every single person that ever meant anything to her. Even people that she hadn't seen in like 10 years. She would still keep track of them and let them know that she was thinking of them. Here's one of my paper flowers that I made. And over here, the last time I ever saw Aunt Bernie, I was in my 20s. I was in my early 20s. Yeah, I was 20. Yeah, it was right before I had my first child. So I was about 23. And it was autumn. And I'll never forget it. And I was sitting on her porch. So I made this page in remembrance of that. It was the last time I ever saw her. And it was a wonderful conversation. We had tea. We had biscuits. We talked about things that only people talk about when they're grown up. Things that she never talked to me about or told me about when I was little, because there's certain things you don't tell to a little kid. But she really told me a lot about her life. And she shared a great deal of personal things, and I just knew that day I wanted to tell her story someday. I didn't know when, but I knew I'd want to. And she said that I could tell her story. She was shocked that I would even want to tell her story, but I said, no, I want the whole world to know who you were, or who you are, and know that despite horrible circumstances, despite really not so happy things that could happen in your life, you can still be a good person. You can still make a difference. And she most definitely made a difference. She made an impact on so many lives. And I'm so glad that I had the opportunity finally today to tell her story. Here's the postcard. I think this came from Artie Mays too. I'm pretty sure. And then this little side tuck with autumn. And I stenciled some autumn leaves. And up here it says, and I love this because I lived most of my adult life in I lived most of my life in New England, and fall foliage there in autumn is like no other place on earth. Down here in the South it's different, and I really miss it. But I love this quote. It says, "I can smell autumn dancing in the breeze, the sweet chill of pumpkin and crisp sunburnt leaves." Anne Drake. Well, I hope you're doing well up in heaven, Aunt Bernie, and I hope I made you proud. Here's the last couple pages of the journal. Some more lace, some stenciled flowers, and here, about a year after her son was born, the family that adopted him sent a picture of her son. Now, this is not her son. I mean, this is a vintage image that I found, and I thought it was appropriate. I thought it was fitting for it, but it actually did happen. The family that adopted him sent a picture to her of her son on his 1 year birthday. That one picture gave her strength and courage and faith for the next 50 plus years. And that one little memory, I certainly do hope. I never saw her again after after that day, so I don't know. I mean, I know when she passed away, and that was about I think it was 6 years, I'm pretty sure it was 6 years after the last time I saw her. I don't know if she ever, I never found out. I don't know if she ever got to see her son again, or meet him. I hope that they did. I really do. But if not, they're together now. I'm pretty sure of that. I just feel it in my heart. And then there's this last journaling card that I made with just scraps, and I glued and decoupaged scraps of different stuff onto a piece of file folder, and then some shimmer misted eco dyed scrap on the back of that. You can write on it. And then there's I think, what is it, Anne Greenway? It's an image of a woman dancing around a little tree with her son. I'm pretty sure that they're up in heaven dancing together now. So there you have it. She is for sale. Whew! I put my heart and soul into this journal, and I truly hope that you have enjoyed this flip through. Okay, so I swore I'm going to do this in an hour, no more than an hour. Well, all right, so I'm 11 minutes over. I hope you all enjoyed this flip through. I hope you enjoyed the story. She is for sale, and I'm going to post a link in the description box below to where you can go and purchase her. She's a big girl, that's for sure. And ooh, I just know she's going to go to a good home. The last Carpetbaggers that I've made, and all the wonderful stories that were told within its pages, they've all gone to the perfect homes and the most wonderful people. So I know she's going to go. I know Aunt Bernie's going to go to a good home too. Again, I'm going to post a link below to where you can go purchase her. And I want to thank, really quick, I have to do this, because I would have never been able to construct this journal. I would have never been able to tell the story and have the images that I've had or found without the hard work of these people. One is, number one, Nik The Booksmith. Nik invested not months, not days, but years of her life creating these classes. The Carpetbagger Compendium course, and countless others. My life forever changed once I purchased this class. It just changed for the better in so many wonderful ways. So I thank you for investing all that time and work and energy into creating all these classes, because you've literally changed my life and given me hope on days when I felt like just giving up. And with the health issues that I have, it would have been so easy to give up on certain days, and because of you, Nik, I didn't. I pulled up my big girl panties, and I slayed those dragons, and I just think you're wonderful. So thank you. 2 other people. Second, Susan Taylor Brown. I have said it in several of my videos, and I'm going to say it again. Susan Taylor Brown, she rocks, okay? She has a YouTube channel. If you have not checked out her channel, please do. I will put a link below to her channel. She did a series on her channel how to find copyright-free images. And I'm not talking just one link, but several videos, several links. And then she takes it a step further and shows you how to navigate. Okay, so she can't prevent or stop you from falling down, you know, all the rabbit holes, but she makes it so much more enjoyable. And she took the time and did all of that groundwork for us. And then she's got this wonderful Make-Ahead series, and then she shows you how to her version of eco-dyeing, which is wonderful, and I followed her recipe and I loved how mine came out. And I mean, it's endless. I love you, Susan, and go check out her channel, people. You will not be disappointed. I promise you won't be disappointed. She's got so much knowledge and so much wonderful goodness that you know, you won't be disappointed. You won't. Third, and not necessarily in this order. I mean, it was just what I was thinking at the time. But Mrs. Cog. Her name's Elizabeth, but you know, I call her Mrs. Cog because that's who she is. Every journal I've ever made, I've used at least one or more images that I have purchased from her Etsy store. Again, someone else who has taken the time, invested time, not days or months, but years of their life to create. I mean, yes, you have to purchase them. Great things aren't free, you know. I mean, I have no problem paying for these things. Mrs. Cog, you are wonderful. You're brilliant. You're beautiful. I've seen pictures of her on Instagram. She's got the most beautiful hair. Oh my gosh. Anyways, and I just love all of her. I just love all of her posts. You know, sometimes she does things about, you know, like there's a picture of her sitting on a porch at her house. She's got a beautiful house and she lives on this gorgeous piece of land on a mountain. But she's just a delight to listen to. Her presentation in her videos is just amazing. And she's just so creative. And she shares so much of this knowledge for free on her YouTube channel. But the images are probably some of my favorite images ever. So thank you, Nik. Thank you, Mrs. Cog. Thank you, Susan Taylor Brown. My life is forever changed in such a wonderful, beautiful way because of the three of you. Okay, that's it for now. Again, I'll post links below, a link below to where you can go purchase her. Oh, I hope I just know you're going to go to a good home. I know you will. Thanks everybody for listening to me babble on for an hour and 18 minutes. It's been a long, not rough, but it's been a long week. Yeah. Already. Thank you so much for listening. And I think that's it for now. Tomorrow I think I'm going to do something totally different. I'm going to shock y'all. Well, I don't know, maybe. I might. Bye for now. Thanks.